Welcome back, fellow adventurers, to Around the Pond, Fraud God Games' new shiny podcast. I can say new for I think it's like 6 months. I just learned this in my business class, actually. We were talking about it, calling products new. Um, so it's our new podcast. Today, I have on a very important award winning, as we were just talking about, person, Glenn Seal, the designer and maker of the Midderlands, which is currently on the Necromancer Games Kickstarter page for 5th edition. And then I also have on Edwin Nagy, who is the main head dude of 5th edition for Fraud God Games, amongst many other things. So thank you guys very much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for
And
having us.
I'll let you guys kind of do some introductions of yourself. I know I just did brief ones, but to get in all of the awesomeness that you guys have done, which is extensive, and it should be shown the respect it deserves. Why don't we go ahead and start with Glenn, with all of your stuff and your world that you live in?
Okay, well, people probably know me best for the Midlands setting, which won an award, Gold Ennie Award, in 2018 for Best Cartography. And cartography is probably my main thing, I guess. In terms of commissioning, people use me for products for cartography, art. I do some writing as well. So I'm kind of a bit of an all-rounder, but I publish my own stuff as well. And mainly so far, it's been the Midlands setting.
Yeah, that's the part that I honestly I like about you the most, is that you are a very, very well-rounded person in this industry. You're kind of like a jack
Thank
of
you.
all trades.
Yeah, and I think what I learned when I very first got into publishing was um, if you think you're a good writer and you write some stuff but you don't know anything else, it costs a lot of money to
Mm,
bring a product to the masses, if you like. And if the end goal is to try and make a little bit of money on the side, you're probably not going to do that if you're paying for everything. So I learned pretty quickly to learn layout, learn a bit more about art, and do all the things that I can. And
yeah.
hopefully that keeps your costs down. You can then bring a product to market, and hopefully make a little bit of money on it to kind of build up to eventually start paying people and start releasing the products you really want to release, and give them the proper attention that you want to give them.
Yeah, and it totally cuts out like the I don't know how to best word this, like fulfilling your vision for a project. Like there's been a couple
Yeah,
instances
brilliant.
where I have like this, art piece or this cover in my head, and I'm like, I know exactly how I want this done, but I don't know how to put it into words the right way.
Yeah.
Having the
uh,
kind of skill like you kind of can just do that. you know.
yeah, I mean, I think as well, you have to understand your limitations as well to a degree, but um, I can do art that I think is passable, and I look at it and I think, you know what, actually, I'm really happy with that. I like it. I'm going to go with it. Um, One of the things that I try not to do myself, if I can help it, and I always try and pay for it, is editing, because I'm my own worst enemy with
hmm
editing. I can read something 28 times, and I still won't find the glaring error in it.
Yep.
So let's pay for it.
Yep, you pay for it, but then you look at it again. The editor looks at it again. You print the book, and then like there's a comment on your Facebook the
Yeah,
next day of, "Hey, there's this
every
problem."
every
And I'm
time,
like, "God, son
every
of a gun." Yeah. So I totally
yeah,
did you start out
been there.
in art, or did you start out writing, or is it kind of a mix?
Um, so my background is technical drawing,
Hmm.
and I worked in the security industry for 30 years. Um, and doing well. It started off mechanical and production engineering, so I was doing a lot of technical drawings of welded fabrications and that kind of stuff. Um, and then we switched into more security, electronic stuff, so schematics and wiring diagrams and all that sort of thing. Um, but before I sort of got into that industry, um, I was I was going to do graphic design at art college, and I got accepted for that. But in the end, I decided that the lure of having some money versus more further education, so yeah, I decided that I'd take the money. So yeah, I've kind of always been a little bit arty, but pretty much in terms of publishing, knowing how to publish a book, learning layout, learning more and more about art and techniques and things like that. A little bit more about cartography and geography and all that. That's all pretty much self-taught.
Hmm. That's very cool. Yeah, because you keep mentioning it, and I looked at the Monkey Blood website before, just in preparing for the interview and stuff, and you have commissions out for I think every single part of a process of creating a book, and I was just like taken back. I was
Yeah,
like, wow, what like a generational talent,
yeah. I kind of I've thought to myself on a couple of occasions, maybe I could sort of market myself as a one-stop shop. So
Mm.
if you've got an idea for a book and you can do the writing, outsource everything else to me, and
Yeah,
I'll
for
help you
real.
get it to market and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I have to be careful about how many hats I've got because unfortunately there's only me and
Mm.
24 hours in a day, and I'm already close close to the limit on minimal sleep. So
Yeah, yeah, totally understand that. So that's a little bit about you. Now let's switch over to the other amazing mind in this group or this little chat right now, Edwin. For the people who don't know you, which I'm sure is only a few on the Frog God channel, what are you
Well,
all about, my man?
so I'm just realizing that I actually have been working for and with Glyn longer than I have been working with and for Frog God.
Huh.
So I started with Glyn on Demon Stones back in 2016, doing the Swords and Wizardry rules conversion for that.
Back in the day.
Back in the day,
Edwin was there at the start of the Monkey Blood.
yeah, and I guess so. That must have been you. Must have talked to Zach, who I was working with for Lesser Gnome, and then that must have been, or vice versa. Somehow, I think that was the connection.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I put a call out for somebody to do some conversion
Yes,
work
you put it on G plus.
from Pathfinder. Yeah, from Pathfinder, and you answered the call, and
Yes,
I knew that you'd done some work with Zach. Was it Whisper and Venom? And that kind
Whisper
of
and
stuff.
Venom. Yeah, it would
Yeah.
have been um, Death and Taxes probably. I think
Ah,
Whisper
yeah.
and Venom I did some editing, some late editing for, and then Death and Taxes I co-wrote with them and did some of the rules development with.
Yeah. So you were eminently qualified.
Absolutely.
So
So yeah, so I am.
so
I'm Frog God's 5e person. I'm one of the co-authors for the Midderlands, although I think that my authorship portion was primarily technical for that book. I was a little more creative author in the expanded Midderlands. That was super fun
Yeah, so
writing as well.
so you two
And
do go way back, because I knew you worked on the Midderlands, original Swords and Wizardry, but I didn't know you guys went further back than that. So that's really cool.
yeah,
yeah, we've even discussed structural engineering projects and calcs and things
exactly.
for.
The intriguing stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Occasionally, we realize we have things in common other than gaming.
Right? Isn't that weird when you're talking to a gamer and you're like, wow, you're a human, not just a gamer.
That's right.
And me and Edwin have actually met in person.
Yep.
Ooh, wait, where was that? Convention or something different?
Yeah, it was a game convention north of London,
Oh, okay.
and it's I've lost it. What's it called?
Concrete Cow,
Concrete Cow. How could I forget that?
Milton Keynes.
Milton Keynes, and yeah, I was doing research for the Midderlands editions, the expanded Midderlands, doing some field research in Gollandia, and I took the opportunity to hop across the channel and go to Concrete Cow with some of the Chaosium folks, the good friends of Jackson Elias. Podcasters are sort of wrapped up in organizing that convention, and Glenn came down, and Mark. No, not Mark.
No, it was Pookie.
Pookie was
the
there.
editor.
Yeah, editor. So we had a good time meeting and playing games and hanging out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, when you guys go to a convention in London, let me know, because you know, that would be great for the YouTube channel, of course. You know,
Sure.
you can send me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you could pay for it the same way we did.
Bill Webb's money. Right.
Sure. You can try that.
So,
You have to swim.
swim across the pond.
Like
Yeah.
a frog. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is Frog God Games. You know, it's around the pond. That's what I was working towards, going around
Well,
the
that's pretty
pond
good.
to the other side of the pond. There we go. It all comes full circle.
Yeah. So for this project, we have decided that while we are converting to 5e, we are not going to convert to American English.
Mm.
So
Is
that was
that-
one of the fun things I had writing for, I guess for both of them, was trying to retrain myself to add the extra U's and switch some S's for Z's, or maybe Z's for S's, and so forth.
You know, I didn't even think about that. I had in my notes, you know, when you know, discussing the Midderlands, you know, the 5e mechanics and how that kind of changes from Swords and Wizardry and all that kind of stuff. I didn't even think about the fact that the English is different and if that would be converted as well or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, both
Luckily,
Okay.
there's no aluminium in the Midlands either.
Exactly. Yeah, because I mean, it's more than just the spelling and occasional word choice. It's also a certain British humor, which I like a lot, and I think, like many, certainly many of the gamers that I played with as a kid, you know, we were sort of on the BBC via PBS TV, and so we got a lot of the British humor as young enough for it to imprint on us.
Yeah, I think there's Monty Python and certainly Blackadder too.
Yeah.
You know, liberally sprinkled throughout the Midlands, as I said.
How about a footnote section of pointing out all the British humor? Is that possible?
The Easter egg, it's on your own.
It's on your own.
Yeah. You got to do your own research somewhere.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Pivoting back though, so the Midderlands itself, where did the setting come from? Like, was there like a moment of inspiration?
New Jersey,
that hit
obviously.
you? Right. I was gonna say the Wild West, but was there like a point where you were like, "Yeah, this is gonna become a thing now"?
Yeah, it didn't start off as me thinking, right, I'm going to create a setting. It actually started off with the creature doodles, which are these kind of side profile views of creatures. And when I'd go to my girlfriend's house, she'd watch the TV and I'd just sit there doodling in a sketchbook.
So it kind of started with like the creatures in the setting rather than like the world itself.
Yeah. So, and at that point, I was just drawing them, and there was no idea for a setting there at that time. The kind of more that I was filling the book up, the more I was thinking it'd be great if these actually lived in the world somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started. I don't know whether you're familiar with things like Spiderwick Chronicles,
of course, yeah.
which is Tony
read 'em growing up,
Dietlitz's. Yeah, so that kind of, you know, these small creatures or big creatures, whatever, inhabiting the real world, started to sort of formulate a little bit. So I decided that it'd be great to have write a book or something where these creatures lived in the landscape around near where I lived. And the more I was thinking about that, that's when I think the penny dropped that actually this might make quite a good setting, based on a kind of gloomier late Middle Age Tudor England version of where I live. So at kind of that point, then I decided, right, it's time to make these into creatures, monsters, build a map of the landscape around me, and convert it into a usable setting.
So this is actually like opening up a lot in my like I feel like my mind was just unlocked because when I was reading the Kickstarter page, and just from like previous knowledge, but the way it's worded, I believe on the Kickstarter page is like that it's like you're looking at Great Britain through like a looking glass. I think, right? I think it says somewhere in there. That's now that you bring up Spiderwick, that actually like I don't know if you did that on purpose, but like because in Spiderwick, you can't see the monsters unless you're looking through that looking glass. Is that for that reason?
Not particularly. I think actually that wording on the Kickstarter page it's kind of an alternate version to what's on the text at the back of the. I think I say something like it's like looking through grime-smeared spectacles or something like that. At a version of England in the late Middle Ages, early Renaissance.
That's funny. Cool. I thought it was based on Alice. That sort of flip of going through the looking glass.
Oh my God! I just thought of that too.
Wow.
How did I not think of that? Being the biggest Disney person in the gaming community.
Yeah, and I definitely don't think of that as Disney, but I guess it is now. Like
it is technically, yeah.
It wasn't Disney.
We're taking over.
When I first read it, yeah.
Fun fact: Disney's bought out the games, every game. Eventually, yeah, that's actually really intriguing. Now I can't stop thinking about Spiderwick now, but that's for another conversation for another day.
Yeah, I kind of it's Dieterlitz's art for me. I've got one of the books, and I remember flicking through the book and just thinking, man, that's apart from the fact that the illustrations are like top draw.
Yeah.
And if I could commission him to do all of my setting books, I would. The idea for that was quite intriguing, and I can't say that at the time that I was doing it I was thinking about that particularly, but afterwards I wonder whether that planted the seed, and copious amounts of Blackadder 2 when I was young. I used to know all the lines from all of the episodes, and I could recite them. So yeah, I think there's quite a few things that have come together.
I mean that attaches me to the setting even more now. It's like, God, I like hearing backstories, and this is like one of those really cool stories where you said you were just doodling, you said at your girlfriend's place, and then it just spawned from there. That's cool.
Yeah, and the map of the Midlands, you could pretty much overlay that on the real world map of the area, and the towns and the villages would synchronize pretty much. It's not exact, but there are many locations on the map that are actually based on places that I've been to, things that I know about, and things that you can read about, such as the Tower of Pi, which is in Cairn Chase Forest, is actually a BT phone tower in the middle of Cannock Chase. Woods, so you can go and find that on the internet. It's called Pi Green Radio Mast or something. So yeah, there's all these things that are actually they have a significance in the real world.
That's really cool, because it's very cool to me that you took from the real world, because a lot of people, I don't want to speak for other designers or writers or anything like that, but a lot of people pull from other fantasy worlds or science fiction worlds and then kind of put their own spin or brush it up to their expectations or mental reality and then make their settings or worlds because of that. But you said no. England is
chuck all that out the window. I mean the Midlands map is 1.5 mile hexes. Now I know 6 mile hexes is more of an old school kind of hex size. But actually, if you go to Google Earth or wherever and draw a 1.5 mile hex or circle, um, there's an awful lot of ground that covers, and
Yeah. Oh yeah.
certainly in the UK, if I draw that around based on where I am now, there's all sorts of things within that space that are interesting and could have an adventure around. So the actual map of the Midlands covers a significant area in terms of um, things to find and interesting things to observe. So whilst it's only small, I think it's about 46 miles by 32. There's a lot of stuff you can pack in there.
Well, and that's
That's
got to
awesome.
be in a medieval sense. That's got to be most people's world,
Hmm.
like something that big.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to
Bigger,
walk from
right?
one side
Exactly.
to the other.
I've been thinking about sort of deeper adventures versus broader adventures. Like a city adventure, you could spend years of a campaign in a town and just keep on digging deeper and finding new relationships and new parts of the town and never really travel very far. And of course, lots of people do that in real life also.
Yeah,
It seems like in the same way in a this sort of small town village area, you could have, I think, more intricate things going on because it's a small area, and so it allows you to have a lot of interconnections that actually make sense and could conceivably happen.
yeah, and I think what you just said there is exactly right. You can have a lot of interconnections. When the setting hexes get too big, things become disconnected. So you don't have that kind of influence from one hex to the other. And yeah, I think I just prefer smaller environments to explore. Um, it's not so overwhelming.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like empty space too sometimes if you do too big of hexes or too big of areas, with just dead land in between,
When you
waypoints.
always
Yeah,
end up hand waving the, okay, it's 2 days later, and now you've made it to the tower, blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, well that was fun, but we could have said it was 2 hours later, and we made it to the tower of blah blah blah, and here we are.
Yeah, I literally do that all the time in my campaign. I'm like, everything is so condensed because I don't like I don't know, like Lord of the Rings skipping from here, in the movie
Right.
sense of skipping to here to, here to there. Whereas, we read the books and there's some
It
things that
seemed like they
happen
did it
along
in
those
real time
travels.
in the movies.
Yeah,
I'm interested to know what the
right.
scale of the Middle Earth map is now you've just said that.
Oh yeah.
I don't have the books are in Michigan. I have like some source books and stuff that go over it, but I don't have them with me. Um,
I'm scouring the internet right now, thinking,
That's exactly what I want.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
But
yeah, I do enjoy, and the map, might I say, is beautiful. I mean, my God, look at this thing. I'm looking at it right now, and it'll be flashing on the screen during the video and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff. But
it's been a great opportunity actually to redo the map, um, just because I could, have another go at it.
mm,
I think when you make a piece of art or you do a map and then it's released, it's kind of, well, that's it then. That's the one that everybody will always associate with that product. So it's really nice to have another opportunity to create another version of it, and the book itself. It's going to be new art for a lot of it. Some of the art's repurposed and coloured. I think Jim Magnuson's art's going to stay as it is, possibly. But all of the maps are redone, and I'm creating some new full page art pieces as well. So
mm.
and doing the layout. So yeah, I'm super excited to be getting stuck into it, which is kind of about to start in earnest with me getting all the pieces ready.
So just like a mechanical question that popped in my head from, going from Swords and Wizardry to Fifth Edition, and then the slight edits or whatever changes to the map. Is it still it's still, you know, the hex map. Is it still like 1.5 miles
Yeah,
per hex?
it's
Okay.
yeah. The map hasn't changed in terms of its geography. It's just changed a bit in terms of its look and feel.
Okay. So the mechanical aspects of that travel and, you know, and
Yeah, they're the same.
you know,
Yeah.
per, you know, adventure per capita or per square
Yeah,
mile.
yeah.
Adventure per square mile. That'd be kind of fun to, you know, throw
As
in
much
there.
adventure as you can find in 1.5 miles.
And I think
however
Edwin,
many hexes.
yeah, literally. I think that's a good point, Edwin, of like of sort of that medieval or fantasy, fantastic worlds. You know, the commoner, or the farmer, the townsfolk aren't. They don't really care what's going on 300 miles away from them. It has no impact or anything. And even I feel like adventurers sometimes are like, we have to go that far. And if you're getting in the head of your player, or you know your character, I'm not walking 300 miles, man. I don't even know if I'm doing that on a horseback. You know, like I don't. There's
Right.
not enough gold in that dungeon to get me to go.
I mean,
that
you
far.
know, even by sailing vessel, that's I mean, that's a commitment, and probably one that's going to end you up dead.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lifetime of just doing that, isn't it? Pretty much, like Sir Walter Raleigh and his ilk.
Yeah.
We just have the convenience of being in game, like you said, and saying, "Oh, it's 7 days later, and you're there," and it's like, "Oh,
Right,
cool."
and we have this nice little conversion says every day you get to travel 18 miles if you're blah 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 blah. Okay, so you are now, and the calendar flips forward, and here you are, and we ignored food, and life's good.
It's even on the fifth edition, you know, DM screen of if you're traveling at like fast, moderate, and slow, or whatever
Right.
it is, you can go this many miles and that kind of stuff. And I remember like the beginning of when we started playing 5e, and I was using that screen. My friends were like, "Oh, we want to go here," and I'm like, "Okay, it's this far away." I was like doing the math of it, and I was like, "Why are we doing this? Like, this is taking
Yeah,
away
it's
from the
kind of
game."
it's forcing random things into the game that kind of get in the way of the actual story or the actual adventure.
Mhm.
I've never been a massive fan of random encounters. I prefer to know if we're going from one place to the other. I'd rather the encounter was something that was kind of useful to the story or useful to the adventure.
That is such a good point, actually. That because that is. I wouldn't say it's like a topic up for debate that's often, but when it's brought up, I feel like people are love them or hate them. You know, I don't know a lot of people indifferent about random encounters.
I go
Yeah,
both ways on it because I can really enjoy, especially as a GM, not also as a player, but as a GM, I can really enjoy the challenge of writing the random encounters into the story so that they become important and interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's sort of. I mean, there was one game I played in uh, 5 years ago. I don't remember, quite a while ago, and the GM rolled dragons way more often than you could possibly roll dragons, and and we were pretty low level, so we'd see one fly over, and then at one point we saw one sleeping somewhere, and but it became part of the story because we started questioning, why are all these dragons, and he started coming up with answers in his head canon, and eventually the world sort of responded to the random table.
Yeah, and I've even gone kind of as far to I'm working with this idea in my head for the next campaign book that I write, and getting it on paper it's not really translating as well as it is in my head or in my campaign. Sort of like my open world campaign. It might work better in like a world setting kind of thing where it's sort of like taken from a thing that happens in Skyrim. A random encounter that happens in Skyrim is having like this random encounter, whether it be monsters, bandits, whatever it be, or you encounter this NPC along the road, having sort of like a quest spawn off of that, not it being like a random thing. Like you get attacked by thugs on the road saying you owe this person money, and then they have this note on their body that leads you to whatever town you were going to, and you get to track down this person, and it kind of turns into something that's more than random.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to write into a campaign book that that I'm doing now, but like it's an idea for sort of like even like a book like the Midderlands, where it's like a world setting and you have these random things that can happen.
You might need to think about a digital product because you could easily have a random table where the results you get one time you roll affect the tables you roll on, or the contents of the tables, and it sort of
alters and
starts
changes.
pushing one way, and it sort of evolves into something that you didn't know where it was going to get to, but it at least feels a little more consistent that way.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, I think if random encounters always have a hook that's useful for going and doing something else, then great. I was just thinking about if you're having a random encounter between two locations, make it something that's useful to the story. But that doesn't necessarily always work. And the real world example of that is if I'm going to the shop to buy some Oreos, and I bump into somebody on the way, it's very unlikely that he's going to have anything to do with me buying Oreos,
right? Yeah.
Unless he's also going to buy Oreos,
right?
He's buying all of the Oreos.
Because it's National Oreo Day, and you happen to be celebrating it together.
You know, I picked Oreos because I knew that everybody would know what I was talking about.
That's a fair point.
If I'd have said Jammy Dodgers, would you have known?
No.
Oh, there we go.
Sound dodgy.
Custard creams, bourbons.
All the good treats that we don't get here.
This is sounding like I'm listening to like a Harry Potter narrated book. The kids are on the trolley going to Hogwarts.
Maybe I should read some of the hex locations out in my phone voice.
Oh yeah.
I had a point for 5e, but now I've lost it thinking about trolley treats.
Well done.
Great podcast host I am. So their book originally is in Swords and Wizardry, and that's available on your website right now, right? For our Swords and Wizardry friends who just want the book now.
Sort of, yes.
Okay.
In the UK at the moment, I'm going through the process of VAT registration.
Ooh, lovely.
Which is an arduous and painful tax process. So at the moment, because I've registered a few days back and I've got to wait, I need to. It's not clear whether I need to charge VAT on some things or not. So consequently, whilst that's happening, I've just taken the store offline so it doesn't complicate matters. Right. When they say, "Oh, you need to do it like this," and then I've got all this, paperwork to sort out. So that'll be a nightmare. So I just thought I'd take it offline, but it's probably going to be resolved within a couple of weeks.
Okay, cool. So taking the book from Swords and Wizardry to 5e, was that something like that you thought of, or that Edwin was like, "Hey, we're going to do this"?
I'm pretty sure it came from me. I really wanted to try and bring the Midlands to a different game system, and I'd kind of had 5e in mind, but I'm not. I have played 5e, but I'm not well versed in the setting. And I think I'd made some comments about it, and I think that got picked up by either Edwin or Zach, and it kind of evolved gradually from there that we would do it.
Yeah, I was going to say both, meaning I think we both thought about it and we're both excited about it, and then we realized that we were both thinking about it.
Yeah, that's probably very likely the case.
And then it was the kind of thing you were like, "Nice, we're going to do this."
Yeah.
So Edwin, you are handling sort of the conversion, aspect of the book, right?
I will be. Yep.
Okay, cool. So since you have like that background with Swords and Wizardry as well, does that make it easier for you to convert world settings, or is it still like sort of an arduous process that it's going to strain you or anything like that?
It's not arduous in the sense that it's fun. It's something I enjoy doing, but it is challenging, and I think the I mean, certainly knowing both rule sets helps, and knowing the authors helps, because then I have a better idea of the intent. It is challenging to translate a work if you can't ask the author question. And I think
Sure.
that's just as true for rules as it is for language. If I were to go from English to French or something, if I couldn't talk to the author, it would be difficult. In fact, that was English to English, but it was a French person's English. I needed to talk to the author. I was just working on reviewing something that was where again, you got to talk to the author and say, okay, I see this sentence here, and what's your goal? Why does this sentence exist? And we can talk about that, and then I can write something that does that. So similarly, if there's a swords and wizardry mechanic, I need to understand, is the goal of this that 80% of the average party is going to end up dead, or is the goal of this to build suspense, or is the goal of this to, why does this exist? And then try to make that happen in the other rule set. And so, for example, for the creatures and the creatures part of the Midderlands, which will be the most challenging part to convert because it's the stats densest, that's also the part I'm most familiar with and have the most sort of understanding of what we were trying to do at the time, although I've probably forgotten a lot of it.
I think if in terms of Edwin doing this, I don't think there's anybody better qualified to do this conversion, because of Edwin's 5e knowledge, Edwin's swords and wizardry knowledge, Edwin's Midlands knowledge. The fact that me and Edwin know each other and have worked with each other for since a million years ago, and yeah, there's nobody else that I would possibly trust with it, knowing that Edwin's going to have the fullest grasp of this.
So when I screw it up, we'll know that it was just impossible to do in the first place.
Right.
Absolutely, it was a bridge too far.
Exactly.
Nice. Well, I'm excited for 5e because I love my old school games. I love First Edition. I love BX. I love Swords and Wizardry. But my home game is 5e. So having this product conveniently converted for me is going to be awesome. And I'm backed in at the hardcover level because I like me my hardcovers. I would love to go up to the limited edition hardcover.
Yeah.
But college and it's either I buy this book and my textbooks next semester, or I just buy this book. So
I think this book is probably going to get you through most of your classes.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly.
Oh, okay. So I have intro to finance next semester. Yeah. So that's
absolutely. Yeah, in fact, there's an entire section in the book on conversion on finances. It's in there.
Currency conversion. Yeah, exactly. That's in here. Covered. We've got you covered. Yeah, it's fine.
Brilliant.
There's a whole world. How could you not pass real classes given an entire world's worth of information?
Well, that's good to know that we were talking about that. So I'll be able to do some investment banking along those 1.5 mile hexes. I can take my coin and silver and copper to the bank.
Those Gloomium coins are dangerous. Watch out for them.
Yeah, I'm going to start monopolizing like Disney and start taking over the Midderlands.
Good.
They've taught me well. Is there so this was something that popped in my head right before I pressed live. Is there anything that you can think of now, or predict that will be like new 5th edition rules or mechanics that you are going to make to stay true to the book in its original form? I know that might be kind of a loaded, weird question.
It's a good question. So one of the things that I think differentiates 5e and Swords and Wizardry, and sort of crunchy, or I don't know what the right word is, but anyway, 5e is a relatively rules heavy game in that the authors have thought really deeply about the types of things that might occur in game and how to provide rules for them.
Right.
It's less like first edition had that as well, but in first edition, the rules for this have nothing to do with the rules for that. They just happen to be in the same book and called first edition.
Mm-hmm.
In 5e, they're much more internally consistent, and in Swords and Wizardry, they much more don't exist.
Right.
Right. I mean, the idea is that if you're a Swords and Wizardry referee, I don't remember what you are in Swords and Wizardry. You often make up a rule at the table. If you're an author, you often make up a mechanic and put it in your scenario. And in 5e, I think my goal anyway, both at the table and as a developer or as an author, is to use the existing rules because they're pretty robust and they're pretty flexible. So I try hard to stay within the existing rules because they rarely fail me.
Right. For sure.
Now it is true. One of the things that Glenn and I have talked about that the Bestiary, for example, has currently the Swords and Wizardry version has the race as class version of the creatures, and then it has a specific NPC instance, and then it has a monster instance, sort of a monster stat block.
Sure.
And there's in Swords and Wizardry, there's a bigger blurriness between an NPC and a PC in some sense. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things we've been discussing is how we want to do that. What does that look like in 5e? I mean, obviously we will have a generic creature stat block for the rat dog, and we will have we'll definitely have fluff text for a specific NPC rat dog, and we'll probably have a stat block for that NPC rat dog that will be different from the fluff, sort of like like you have an orc and then you have an orc chieftain or whatever.
Right.
Although they won't necessarily be power level differences, they'll be
it's unique,
skill differences, whatever.
Unique skills, yeah.
But we haven't yet decided whether to do the PC, the player-facing version of them, and if we do a player-facing version, is it a race or is it a class? I'm going to say it's not going to be a class because that's just way too much work.
Right.
So are we going to do playable races? I don't know, but that would be, I think, the closest. I mean,
that would be
closest to like new or
I think that would more fit with the theme of the creature as well. It's effectively it's a race, isn't it? So
right,
I don't think it works specifically as a class. There might be some things we have to do with that, but race certainly, I think.
I mean, the difference, what we lose is that the race is class, you get the things that happen with level, and in 5e there's a few of the I think the dark elves get a cantrip. Their cantrips change as the character. It's weird.
Tieflings have it, yeah. I
know
Tieflings
it feels weird though. It feels like the authors of 5e had to kind of dislocate their shoulder a little bit, in order to make that work, because we really don't think of racial abilities changing with class level in general.
Yeah, like Tieflings they get, Hellish Rebuke, the spell, I think at level 2, and then at level 5 they get Darkness, or maybe it's a higher level. So it's scalable with their class or their race still. Right,
and so there is precedent for doing that, and of course we'll certainly do things. We do this all the time, but for a creature, the creature features, the things that are between the stats and the actions, right? So all the little unique powers, which could be something as boring as pack tactics or whatever. But I will definitely be writing new of those things for a lot of these creatures, because that's really how you can make creatures fun in 5e.
Yeah, especially unique to the setting too, because having those new tools for the DM, GM, referee, whatever you want to call it, at the toolkit, it makes it
Gloomy and Touch.
Yeah, the Gloomy and Touch. There you go. But playable races, new playable races that are always fun too, and it doesn't always, there's the lizard folk as well, which has it has like its bite attack or something, and then like the Minotaur has like the spearhead with the horns. So there's there's some cool little flavorful things you can add.
Right.
Which like I played a lizard folk once. I think I bit someone like twice maybe, and it was just like for flavor, because my sword is always gonna be better.
Dragonborn have a breath weapon.
And their breath weapon, yeah, like that as well, kind of like gets outscaled, but it's just fun, flavorful stuff that just stays true to that monstrous race. I'll say in this situation because they're not monsters.
Right.
But it offers more for this setting too, so that'd be cool to have some playable races too if you guys could add that. But
yeah,
I know they're hurdles though. They're hurdles. Yeah. Hey, I'm not promising. Like that's a small little promise or wish, for me to ask. I think on the last show that I did with Pex, we were talking about FrogCon, so that's a much bigger like for the viewers to look forward to something. This one is just if it happens, it happens.
Right.
Be cool.
I think there's going to be plenty of content in the book to keep people occupied.
Yeah,
definitely.
Not necessarily playing playing some of the weirdest races they've ever played.
They are weird ones. Yeah, because magic items, spells, normal items that are non-magical items that are weird. Obviously, there's an adventure in there, which is worth a good 4 to 8 hours, and then a whole world and all the hooks and the gaming juice, green juice of gaming.
Very cool. Oh, I had one more question. So the limited is just like, this is like a totally randomly just popped in my head. I forgot to ask it earlier. The limited edition hardcover or the collector's edition, what kind of cover is that going to have? Is that it's going to look different than the normal hardcover cover?
So what we are picturing right now is a linen-esque. So it'll feel and look like cloth, like fabric, like linen. So a tight grain linen, and then it will have an embossed section with whatever Glenn chooses as a foil. So a foil embossed. I'm guessing a creature, but it could be a magic item. It could be a piece of the setting. I'm not sure. I don't know. Have you had any thoughts on that, Glenn?
It's I'm keeping it in suspense
at
the moment.
Yeah, good.
But my hope is that I will come up with a design for that within the next week. And that'll be something that we can get up on the as an update. I'm starting tomorrow. I'm kind of getting stuck into much more of the art and focusing on getting all the assets ready for layout, so that when Edwin's got a text document for me to plug in, then we can get rolling on doing some layout. But the layout will probably occur after the Kickstarter, certainly. I'll try and get as many of the art assets done so far. But yeah, I'm hoping to get a design for the collector's cover up certainly before the Kickstarter ends.
Yeah, I think it will be more stately. It's gonna be a little more serious looking, I think, but it'll still be green.
Of course. Has to be green.
Has to be green.
Cannot not be green.
Exactly.
I would riot if not.
And I'm hopeful. I would really I really loved the original Mitterland's books with the ribbon, the sewn in ribbons and stuff. And I really hope we can make it to some of these stretch goals, because I know what I want my book to have, and I don't want to have to sew them in myself. So
I said the same exact thing on the. What day is today? Today's Tuesday. Yesterday, I uploaded like a Kickstarter breakdown video of the Mitterlands, and I was like, that is the one thing that I need in my book. So everyone go back it, basically.
That's right. Cool.
All right. Well, do either of you have anything else you want to talk about? Bring to light. Give me a title. Clickbait in the thumbnail.
I can do a quick rundown of some stats for things that are going to be in the book. So 24 creatures, there's 29 fixed hexes, that have got some descriptive text, 3 random locations that kind of move about. There's an adventure with 6 adventure ideas. There's a bunch of oddities, so there's 4 flora, 13 fauna, 5 spells, 13 items, and we've got, in terms of locations, we've got 16 hamlets, of which 5 are mapped, 11 small towns, which 3 are mapped, 8 large towns, 5 are mapped, and 22 other points of interest. So there's quite a lot of stuff packed in there.
It's a lot of, yeah. I mean, there's going to be many adventures that you can go on with all that stuff.
Oh yeah, game juice.
Oh yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that 51 minutes is when, or roughly 50 minutes has gone by. That, oh my God, that felt like,
Wow, that went quick.
time flies when you're having fun. This was a very fun conversation. I like this a lot.
Sweet. Yeah, this is good stuff.
Awesome.
Right
Thank you
on.
very much for listening to me drone.
Well, thank you guys very much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. You guys are helping me, helping the community. So everything you guys do is very much appreciated. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to come chat.
My pleasure.
Sure thing. Pleasure.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it at any time. Comment down below what you are most excited for of the Midlands, because we talked about a lot. So just let us know what you guys are excited for, what you want to see, and what you love most about the setting. So subscribe for more content. And thank you guys very much, and keep going on. Adventures worth winning.